when I first did it, I wanted to make sure no one saw me either. I didn't want
Right.
anybody to see me doing it. I looked at nobody's. I put my knee on the floor quick, jump back up, and that's where it all
Right.
started, brother. And then I've been doing that. That's the one thing I've done every single day now. And November will be 19 years sobriety for me, which
Nice.
is a miracle. So yeah.
Hello, my friends, and welcome back to yet another episode of I Love Being Sober. My name is Tim Westbrook, and I'm the CEO of Camelback Recovery here in the always sunny and always sober Scottsdale, Arizona, where my team and I, over the course of many years, have helped thousands of people on their path to recovery. We started this show because there's so much misinformation about addiction treatment, mental illness, and recovery in general. There's so much more to recovery than just going to inpatient treatment and going to 12-step meetings and just seeing a therapist. And all of those things are important, and AA saved my life. However, to find long-term recovery and live happy, joyous, and free, there's a lot more to it than just stopping the drinking, stopping the drugs, stopping the sex addiction, or stopping any addictive behavior for that matter. To live a new life, a person needs new, healthy lifestyle habits, amongst other things, of course. Typically, this includes new eating habits, new exercise habits, new sleeping habits, new hobbies, new interests, new friends. Self-care becomes a priority, and the list goes on. Those are the types of things that we talk about here on the show. Today, I'm here with David Hill. David has been a lead generation expert for 36 years. He's a real estate entrepreneur, podcast host of Path to Mastery, husband and father of 3 amazing daughters, triathlete, and he's been clean and sober for 18 years. His purpose in life is spreading his message of hope and prosperity of where he came from to where he is going. David, welcome to the show. I'm so glad to have you here.
Thanks, man. Appreciate it, Tim. It's good to be here.
Yeah, it's good to see you. So how did you end up as an alcoholic or an addict?
Oh, wow. How did I end up there? That's an interesting question.
How did it happen? How did that happen to you? Well, I guess first off, what was your drug of choice?
All drugs. Well, you know what? I shouldn't say that. I was lucky that I never graduated above like cocaine or any of that. So I never did crack. I never did anything with needles or any of that stuff. So I'm blessed that I never went there, you know. But yeah, in the end, I just did a lot of cocaine. I drank. I guess drinking was always my drug of choice, but in the end, I thought I kind of figured out that if I could do enough cocaine, I could keep myself level enough so that I wouldn't get in trouble and black out and do crazy stuff. But even in the end, that even failed me. So you know, it was a mess.
Right. So how did it happen? How did it happen to you? How did you become an alcoholic?
Well, I don't know. That's an interesting question. I have friends that say you're born an alcoholic. That you're you know, it's a product of your upbringing. Sometimes I think that might have played into it with me, just because you know my father was an alcoholic and he drank a lot. He was very abusive and very beat me, beat my mother. There's always put marijuana around the house and alcohol, and my mother drank a lot as well, and she would so it was around me, I guess. And I was shy as a kid. I wasn't really a good communicator, through what I went through with my dad. I think when I thinking back to the first time I drank, it was like I came outside of my shell, like I was this shy, introverted kid that didn't have any self-confidence, didn't know how to communicate the right way. But when I drank, it did something to me. It gave me this new person came out. I could now talk, I could dance, I could do all this stuff, and I absolutely loved it. And I can, I remember my first drink. I think I was telling you about this. You were on my podcast, and I went to a football game with a bunch of guys and girls, and I didn't start drinking until I was older, Tim. I think my first drink was around close to 16, so
Okay.
I didn't start young. I started on a later age, and I blacked out. I fractured my ankle, and next day I had a girlfriend. So, you know what I mean? It was just, the whole thing was crazy. And yeah, so that's I know it seems all over the place, but yeah, I don't know, man. I feel like my dad created a mess, and that's what I was. I was a frigging mess, dude. I don't know if you can swear on this podcast, so I'll watch my language. But my dad, and to my mom to an extent, just created this messy kid that couldn't communicate the right way, didn't have any self-confidence, didn't know, and once I got that alcohol in me, man, I was a different person. I loved it. I had fun. I could talk, and I just wanted more, man. More. That's it. The sickness, more. It's a more drug.
As you're talking, I'm and you're familiar with the Four Agreements.
I am, yeah.
The book,
yeah.
The book, The Four Agreements, and I just got done reading that book again for like the 20th time, and I think about being domesticated. So we're all domesticated, right? So you were domesticated in your household by your parents and by the people that you were around, and you were like, you learned how to live a certain way, and that's how you lived. And clearly it didn't really prepare you for life, is what I'm hearing. Would you agree with that?
Oh, 100%. I mean, yeah, I was not prepared for anything. I was prepared for jail. I found myself locked up. I didn't think I was a bad person, but I found myself in the county jail in the House of Correction at 19 years old, surprised and probably scared for the first time in my life, because I couldn't go home. There was no leaving, and the reason being is because I didn't have coping skills. I didn't have ways of communicating, telling people, hey, I don't like the way you make that makes me feel. So instead, I become very abusive. My father taught me kickboxing at a young age. That's what he taught me. So so think about this. This is crazy, but you got a kid that is being taught, when you're being beaten and you cry, you're beaten harder. So clearly I'm not able to communicate, because if as I'm being beaten, if I'm going to cry, then I'm beaten harder. So that tells you my level of ability to share my feelings, and then teaching me kickboxing. And I'm half black. Like, my father's black, my mother's white. This is back in the the 70s and 80s. So I'm not really fitting in anywhere, because there's racism everywhere, right? I mean, we lived in primarily white neighborhoods most of my life, which was, I guess, a blessing in the end, because my mother, kind of got us away from my father. So, I dealt with that. I dealt with a lot of that, and I didn't know how to deal with it, except for, you're not gonna talk to me like that. And I became very aggressive, and I knew how to fight, like, and so if you can imagine the combination of this kid, that just everything I just shared, it wasn't a good, effective combination for creating productive human beings. So I ended up in court multiple times, and then the last time I went to court at 19, and that's 32 years ago now. I didn't leave the courthouse, and I was surprised, and I ended up spending 11 months in county jail. And I'm lucky, I'm blessed that happened, because it was the beginning of a wake up call for me. And also, I didn't kill anybody, I didn't kill myself, and I didn't end up in state prison, which is the real deal for people that have been locked up. There's a big difference between doing a county, being in county jail to being in state prison. It's a big difference.
Well, and usually when people are in the system, right, when they end up in jail, typically they end up back in jail for the rest of their lives, in and out. Is that accurate?
It depends on the person. I know people like me that, did time, and when they got done, they changed their life, and they didn't have to do it again. And they used it as an opportunity to grow and be a better person. So, and then, yeah, I know a lot of people I grew up with, Tim, frankly, are dead. They're in jail, or they live just complete mediocre lives, like like I lived growing up, frankly, like, unfortunately.
And how were you able to turn your life around?
How was I able to turn my life around? I was sick and tired of being sick and tired. I know that's cliche
Uh-huh.
AA term, but I got out in 2001, I believe, was when I got out, and I wanted to change, but I couldn't. Well, I wanted to, but then I went back to my old buddies, right? And when I think I shared this with you before, I went to a keg party. I brought a 12 pack of old duels with me. That was my mindset. And before
Hmm.
long, I was drinking the old duels, and I was filling the old duels from the keg, and
Right.
not realizing how people knew that, the next morning. But I got in trouble again, and this time around, they really wanted to give me some real time. So I got lucky. I don't know if it was maybe my 90-year-old grandmother came to court with me, and my mother used to go into court with me. They hired the best attorney they could, and the court system gave me a break. They said we're going to let you do this 6-month alcohol rehabilitation program as an alternative to going to jail, because clearly you have all these people here, they care about you. So we're going to give you this break, but then after that, you're on probation for 3.5 years. And if you get in trouble for 3.5 years, you're going to do 2.5 years with 2 years on and after, which means now you have some real time to do. Um,
Right.
they didn't expect me to stay out of trouble. I don't think I didn't expect myself to stay out of trouble for 3.5 years. I couldn't stay out of trouble. I was getting arrested almost once a month for something, whether trespassing, assault and battery, drunken, just all kinds of stupid stuff, right? And but for whatever reason, I went to that rehab center in Western Mass. It was called Howard Street, and there was this little black lady out there that just wanted a corrections officer. His name's Clinton. He took me to an outside meeting downtown Springfield, and I had a really bad attitude back then. But I was in a place where I didn't like my life anymore. To be honest with you, I was in a place where I, I don't know. I just wasn't feeling good about my life where I was. I did want to change. So when I went out, Tim, I just wanted to go out and have a good time. Like, the intention was not to go out and get in a fight, not to get arrested, not to crash my car, not all that stuff. It was to go out and have a good time. And for whatever reason, the good times were further and fewer in between than the bad times. So I kind of knew something was up, and I was starting not to like my life. So I ended up in Howard Street. This little black lady at an outside meeting just convinced me to get on my knees. I think she grabbed me by my arm, and she asked me if I wanted to get sober, and I said I did. And she said, "Then you need to humble yourself. You need to get on your knees. You need and I was like, sure, yeah, whatever." And then she said no, and she held on, and she's like, "No, I want you to understand, like, what humbling yourself means. Is it means you're lowering yourself to something greater than yourself. And are you willing to do that?" And I'll tell you, there's nobody in the world that could have delivered that message to me at the time. I was angry. I weigh 170 now. I weighed about 195 then, all muscle, just a nutcase. Nobody in the world could have delivered that message to me except that little old black lady. And I went back that night to Howard Street, and I put my knee on the floor, and that was the beginning, man. I'll tell you, I when I first did it, I wanted to make sure no one saw me either. I didn't want
Right.
anybody to see me doing it. I looked at nobody's. I put my knee on the floor quick, jump back up, and that's where it all
Right.
started, brother. And then I've been doing that. That's the one thing I've done every single day now. And November will be 19 years sobriety for me, which is
Nice.
a miracle. So yeah.
So what specific incident inspired you to be so passionate about spreading your message of hope and prosperity from where you came from, where you are, and where you're going?
What specific incident?
Mm-hmm.
Um, hmm.
Where were you? What happened? Who were you
Yeah.
with? Because you clearly, you've been sober for coming up on 19 years. Your life wasn't what it is today, and today you have so many amazing things going on. You're a triathlete, you're a podcast host, you're married, you're successful in business, you own a business, and your life today looks a lot different than how it looked when you were when you first got clean and sober. So
Yeah.
and now you're spreading your message of hope and prosperity. And so what happened and what made you decide that you wanted to start doing that?
Well, when I got sober, once I got out of Howard Street, I did that 6 months. Then I had to stay out of trouble for, like I mentioned, 3.5
And
years.
Howard Street was the rehab that you went to.
Yeah, Howard Street was the rehab in Western Mass. It's a casino now, by the way. They knocked the whole place
Okay.
down, and now that's where the casino is in Western Mass. But yeah, so I got home, and I don't know, it wasn't right away. I wanted to change my career. I've always been in sales, and so I went into real estate, and I got my real estate license, and I wanted to change. I wanted to be a different person. I want to be a better person. So I got home. I changed the people I hung out with, and I think I forget who it was, but somebody found out I was sober. They asked me to come, and there were a bunch of us talking to a group of kids at an elementary school, and that's where it all started. And we went in, we talked to the kids, and it was fun. And then I had kids come up to me after and were like, "Oh my God," and like, "Oh," and so then the director, she used to back then she was the director, like this. I don't know if she was superintendent, but she came and said, "Hey, would you be willing to do that at this school? And then would you be able to do that at North High School?" So I ended up kind of being this guy that went to the schools, and it was amazing. I honestly should still be doing that. I don't know how I got away from it, but that's ultimately where it started. I started just talking to some kids at the schools, and then it just led to other things, Tim. I mean, I became successful in my business, so I had to learn how to become a better leader. I had to focus on leadership skills. I had to focus on becoming a better communicator. I had to educate myself, so I started taking some different college courses and Dale Carnegie Effective Communication and all these other things. I just had to start working on this. I was yes, I'm sober, but I'm still a broken person on the inside. And I think that's one of the things we really struggle with in life. When you look at my message, like I'm propelled by purpose, meaning I have a purpose. Other kids, young adults should not have to go through what I went through. I have 3 daughters. Will never see anything like that. As a matter of fact, the life they have is like, yeah, to them it's normal, right? It's normal to have a nice big house and pool and to the whole deal. We lived in a car growing up. That's what I did. They go to the schools they want, but it's amazing that I can do that, right? So I want to get out there and share the message that I can of hope. And one of the things I've always said is, hey, just because you grew up and this is the way you grew up does not mean that has to be your trajectory in life. That does not have to be where you stay. And I think that's one of the biggest struggles is most people I know weren't able to break out of that. Like I don't live in Worcester anymore. I grew up in Worcester. Worcester's kind of like the city where I am. We're about 30 miles west of Boston, and it's a city, and there's the north side of the city, and it's where I grew up as a kid. It's where we lived, and I can drive through there, and I'll see people that I knew that they look like they're 65, 70-year-old men without teeth and stuff because they haven't taken care of themselves. And half the other ones are, like I said, locked up or in prison. And I just want to let people know that doesn't have to be you. You can put a productive life together. You can do big things in the world. And I'm just getting started, in my opinion. Like it took me 17, 18 years just to clean up the mess in here so that I can really get started now. That's truly what I believe. I'm like just getting started.
You're right. When people they grow up in a certain environment, again, going back to the 4 agreements, you're domesticated, you're programmed to live life a certain way. You're raised around these people, and for most people, it's impossible to get out of that. So what suggestion do you have for the person that wants to get out of it?
Yeah. Well, again,
get out of that environment. How to level up your life?
Well, it comes down to being sick and tired, right? Like I said, it comes down to a place where, okay, I was very disappointed in my life. I remember sitting in that little room at Howard Street and saying, okay, this is where my life is right now. I'm in this room. I've got to stay. I'm in a 6-month alcohol rehabilitation center as an alternative to being locked up. And if I make any mistakes, I'm being locked up for 3.5 years. That was as good as it got for me. And that was when I kind of woke up like, okay, my life's a mess. So I think the first step, Tim, is the awareness that you want to do something. Right. And the courts couldn't make me do anything. My mom cared about me, couldn't make me do anything. All the women I dated when I was younger couldn't make me do anything. You know what I mean? It had to come to the point where I was ready to do something. And that was when it started. Once I opened my mind to, okay, I want better for myself. Then I had to, I got involved in the program. I got a sponsor. I went through that whole program, but when I got out was the most important part, right? Because when you're in there, there's nothing you can do. You're stuck, right? You're in there. There's correction. There's guard. There's people that if you leave, they're going to grab you and they're going to throw you in jail. But it's when you get out is the critical part. So you got to change the people, places, and things. That's the most important part. The most important part. I don't know if I shared the story with you. I think I may have, where I was telling my sponsor, Franny, still my sponsor, 17 years later. I found him at about 1.5 years sober, and he's got 39 years sobriety now, I think. I used to drink at a place called On the Rocks. I don't know if I shared the story with you. I may have. I was On the Rocks and Park Ave, and that was, in the end, I thought that was like, that was the ritzy drinking. And I used to say, Freddie, man, whenever I drive by On the Rocks, I'd be like getting like feeling really weird, like getting anxiety and like, oh my God, I want to stop in. And he's like, well, stop freaking driving by On the Rocks, man. Find another effing route.
Yeah.
Find another route. That's it. Like, simplify my life, right? It's how simple is that? And I'm like, no shit. That's it's that simple. And yeah, maybe I'm oversimplifying things, but the reality is you have to change the people, places, and things. And you know this, you've been sober a lot of years. And if we don't change those, then we're never going to change. We can't. So the first thing is the desire. Okay, I know my life's crap. I'm done. And you have to humble yourself, give up, and then you have to change the people, places, and things. And yeah, I would encourage everybody to get involved in some type of a program, a 12-step program. I chose AA has been my program. I still go to 3 meetings a week. 18 years later, still 3 meetings a week, like clockwork. 2 retreats a year. That's what I do. It's my routine.
And I know a lot of people, they want to hold on to their friends. They want to hold on to certain pieces of their old life. You can't. My experience is that everything has to change. New friends, new hobbies, new interests, new eating habits, new sleeping habits, new exercise habits. I mean, everything has to change in order for someone to really get clean and sober. And I think it's scary because it's outside of a comfort zone, right? It's not what they're used to doing. It's not how they're programmed to live life. And so getting involved with some sort of a recovery program, like a 12-step program, and then surrounding yourself with different people that have what you want, right? It's like you find people that have what you want, and you spend time with them, and you do the things that they do. Like it's very simple. It is very simple, because if you go back and you do the things that you used to do, you're going to wind up drunk or high, because that's what happened before, and that's what's going to happen again. Mm-hmm. So your biggest suggestion for the newcomer, if I'm hearing you correctly, is to change their people, places, and things.
You have to. It's not. Yeah. I would tell you you have to. It's impossible to do it without doing that. Like, because you just said it. You're gonna if you go hang out with the same people, eventually. Like, here's what I had to break a relationship. This was one of the toughest things I did in my life. Before I'm married now. I've been married for 11. I've been with my wife for 11 years. We've been married for 6 years now, 7 years. before that, I was with this girl, Jessica. She was my drinking buddy, and she was fun. We had a lot of fun together. We were together a lot of years. When I got sober, she decided she was going to get sober, and around 2 years into sobriety, she decided she didn't want to get sober. She took off. She was gone. I found out she went to the casino with a guy. I was out of my mind. Like, I was such a codependent person too. Like, I would have, if I would have found her, I probably wouldn't even be on this call right now, because I would have probably killed her and killed the guy she was with. That's how effed up I was, even at 2 years sobriety, right? Just to be honest with you.
Mhm.
But
Yeah.
I didn't. Thank God. I couldn't. I was driving around. I had no license back then, looking for them everywhere. Couldn't find them. And my sponsor, Franny, I finally called him, told him what was happening. He said, "Go home. I'm going to come pick you up in the morning. We're going to go have coffee." He said, "We promise you go home and we'll have coffee in the morning." I said, "All right." I did. That going home and having coffee with him in the morning probably saved my life. I went home. He picked me up in the morning. We went and had coffee. And one thing he said to me, I never forget. He said, you know, she's going to pull you out of the boat before you can pull her in the boat. He said, I want you to think about you're in a canoe, right? Or a kayak. You're never going to be able to pull her in the boat. She's going to pull you out of the boat before you can pull her in the boat. And that was kind of like the message that you're right. And I contemplated, you know what? I'm going to start drinking again just so I could stay with her. I contemplated. I didn't do it, thank God, because I had a good sponsor and a good support system. But the reason I bring that up is because it was, first off, it's one of the toughest things I dealt with in sobriety, that relationship. I was with her 8 years before I even got sober. And we had a lot of fun together. We were drinking buddies. We did a lot of things together. But once she decided to go out, I had to separate myself. I had to remove myself from that relationship, or she was going to pull me out of the boat into the water with her. So if you think you're going to go back and hang out with your old buddies, you are mistaken. I'm letting you know that now. If you think you're going to go back and hang out at the bars and drink soda, it's you got to change everything, man. Everything, people, places, and things.
Right. Is there a question that you've always wanted to be asked, but the interviewer never got around to it? And if so, what would that question be?
I know I saw this question when you sent it to me, and I forgot to think about it. I've never actually gone this deep into an interview, by the way. This is the first time I've shared at the level I have. I've never shared about being locked up before, because I don't know, been ashamed of it, but the reality is it's part of my past, and if people want to hold it against me, then hold it against me. It doesn't really matter at this point. But and I don't mean people in sobriety. People in sobriety aren't going to hold it against me. It's going to be other people that maybe can't relate to some of the stuff I shared. But I don't know. That's a good question. I can't think. I think you covered it well. I think just my message for the people listening are, there's so much more out there than we give ourselves credit for, and the only way we can ever receive that is to be open to it. And I was, as you talked about, you elaborated on, is conditioned as a kid to be a certain way. And I don't want anybody else to ever have to go through anything like that. And that's my mission in life, is to get out there and touch as many kids. And even if you have gone through it, then you don't have to continue going through it. And your kids don't have to go through it, right? I broke generational chains in my family. Regardless of what I went through, my daughters, it's different, right? And so I think, I think we just got to get out there and be positive and let people know, hey, just because this is what you came from doesn't mean that's how we have to stay. And it takes hard work sometimes. It takes a lot of work, man. It's not easy. It's a daily thing, showing up every friggin' day, man. Every day, just like business.
It is. And it's just, it's like going to the gym, right? If you go to the gym and you get in shape, you're in shape, but you have to keep on going to the gym. in order to stay in shape. And that's the same thing with recovery, because recovery is not just stopping the drinking, stopping the drugs, stopping the addictive behavior. That's the first start, but that's the first step. But after that, it's learning how to live life differently, and it's continuous. Recovery is a lifelong journey. And sometimes we slip back into our old behaviors. Sometimes we slip back into our old thinking. And that's why we stay connected and continue going to meetings. I stay connected to my sponsor. I stay connected to people in recovery. I continue to go to meetings, and I need that. That's how I'm going to stay spiritually fit, which is you go to the gym to stay physically fit. I stay connected to recovery to stay spiritually fit.
That's great. Yeah. You nailed it. That's it. It's spirit. It's an inside thing, man. It's a mental, you're right. It's physically, when I got sober, I got sober at a meeting called, when I got home, I was lucky. I got to a meeting called, ironically, if you go to my Instagram, you'll see I had my shirt on yesterday. It says TSDD, tough shit, don't drink. That was the name of the meeting. It was 130 guys, bikers. Half the guys were bikers. It was a men's meeting. Half the guys were bikers. The other half were guys that just got out of jail, combined with guys in like halfway houses. So you can imagine, it was just chaotic, and I fit right in. I loved it. It was a bunch of lunatics, but you know what they all had in common? Is no one was drinking. And the guys were going on camping trips, and they were going to NASCAR, and they were going out to dinner on Fridays, and they were going to bowling. And I did all that. I did all that stuff in the beginning. That was what helped me stay sober in the beginning, being part of that. Unfortunately, I don't hang out with, I'm not a big part of that group anymore, but that's what I needed at that point in my life, because I didn't have anything else. I needed that network, So yeah, I think connecting yourself with a network like that is going to be super important as well.
So we're coming up on the end of the show, David. How can people find you? Where can they find you?
I'd say find me on Instagram or Facebook is probably the best way. If you go to Instagram, it's David I. Hill. That's it, just at David I. Hill. And on Facebook, same thing. I believe it's David I. Hill, or you can find me facebook.com/Path to Mastery. And Path to Mastery is really how I live my life. It's an always evolving. I'm on a path to mastery. I don't believe I achieve mastery. Like some people would look at me now and say, dude, compared to where you come from, Jesus, you're like Elon Musk or something. But no, it's not. I'm always evolving, getting better. How do I get better? That's it. And that's what my podcast. I've had Gary Vee on my podcast. I've had Mel Robbins, Grant Cardone. I've been able to seek out these people that are doing things at such a high level. So that, that's what I've had Tim Westbrook on my podcast, so yeah, I'm always evolving, man. So I'd say, I know I keep probably rambling on, but just check out my podcast too. Tim's on. Actually, I think your episode, ironically, was released today. My assistant released it today. So awesome. Yeah, that's it. Path to Mastery, baby. On the path to mastery. That's what it's all about.
Awesome. Well, David, thank you so much for coming on the show today. And if you want to follow David, I posted it in the comments. Path to Mastery is his podcast. David I. Hill on Facebook. Instagram is David I. Hill. And if you want to find out more about Camelback Recovery on Facebook or Instagram. We also just launched a new social media platform on TikTok, Kick-Ass Sober Life on TikTok, Kick-Ass Sober Life on Instagram. Thanks so much, and hope everyone has a great rest of your day.
Thanks, man.